how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
To infinity and beyond.
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
It's classified.
You talking to me?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
I can't lie!
Expecto Patronum!
Entertainment X.
You never know what you're going to get.
For this episode, I sit down and chat with Douglas Lyons. Douglas is currently in the cast of Beautiful the Musical at the Stephen Sondheim Theater in New York City. But that's not all he's doing. He has been working on multiple productions, writing, directing, producing, creating, etc., etc., etc. And we cover all of it in a very short amount of time. I really hope you enjoy this episode and get some of that fire and drive that really keeps Douglas moving along. So keep on keeping on. We're back. I'm Clayton Howe, and today with me is Douglas Lyons.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Douglas, for joining me today to chit-chat about creativity, theater, entertainment, etc.
Life.
I love it. This is really great. You come to me, or I come to you, by way of Gabrielle Elizabeth.
Yes.
Who is a fellow castmate of yours.
Yes.
In Beautiful the Musical at the
Yes.
beautiful Stephen Sondheim Theater.
5 years later.
5 years later. 5 years later. How does it feel?
It's a blessing. The show is a complete blessing.
Yeah.
And there are people still wiping tears every night.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
The music's okay.
It's, it's just, they really could have picked another score. So
Yeah. No. Oh my God. I love it. I'm obsessed with that. Okay. So beyond being simply just a performer, you're a creator, you're a writer, you're doing so much more. I want to talk about, and I just want to jump right into it.
Yeah.
The permission you gave yourself to go ahead and write something. Do you remember that moment?
It was sort of by accident. So my heart was broken in 2012.
Yeah.
I was in Mormon on Broadway at the time, and my parents got me a guitar. I still can't play it. But I started like doodling.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten out of a relationship, and the music began to heal me in a way that was really unexpected. And I was like, oh, I like this. It wasn't for gain. It really was sort of to breathe. And I started writing some tunes. And then I went on the Book of Mormon First National and met Ethan Pakchar, my original writing partner. And he's the guitarist on the tour. And he's supposed to give me guitar lessons. And I was like, can I just like sing over what you're doing? And we started vibing. And we had sessions in dressing rooms and hallways. And some of the cast members started singing our music. And we shared it with like the company at a function I'll never forget.
Well, what was the function? Was this pop music? Or?
It's so our first like sharing, we were in Boston, I think, with the tour, and our producer Ann Garofino at the time took us to her like boathouse, and we had like a little share, and we sang one of our songs, and people were like really into it. And then we did Broadway Unlocked here in the city in April of 2014. Was our first like public performance with Michael Kilgore singing Crush and Raina White singing Free. And that was sort of the beginning of our story musically.
Okay, so these were individual tracks that you were writing. When did it become music meets story?
So we recorded our album. I'm getting my timeline mixed up. We recorded our album. Fine. No, it's fine. August of 2013, actually. So the Broadway Unlocked was spring of 2013. We recorded our live album.
Yeah.
Called #LoveLive. It's on iTunes and Spotify, but buy it on iTunes, please. We did that for one night only, and it was a bunch of like concept songs, if you will.
Sure.
And we did a concert at 54 Below in spring of 2014, and that's how we got our agent, Michael Finkel at William Morris. And he said to us, you guys write really great tunes, but if you want to be in, the Broadway musical circuit, you got to actually write a show. So we had this idea, 5 Points, which is the show we've been developing for now 5 years, that got a world premiere at Theater Latte Da in Minneapolis last year. It was running this time last year, was our first show that we started working on. And Harrison David Rivers, who just won the Relentless Award for his play The Bandage Place, became our book writer. And yeah, that was our first stab at musicals.
So as you're going to be able to tell, I'd like ask a ton of questions.
That's fine.
And I love how we casually skimmed over the fact that you got an agent from a 54 Below evening with, you said William Morris?
Yeah.
What did you invite them? Were they there?
So I'm a shark. I'm a shark, and
Okay.
anyone that works with me realizes this. Like, I don't believe in permission to. I don't believe in being given permission to do things. So the summer before we recorded our album, I emailed every literary musical theater agent representation that I could find. I went on Robert Lopez's website. I went on Jeff Thompson. I went on all these people, and I was like, who reps these people? We're new to the game. I'm just going to send blind emails. And I sent them to CAA, William Morris, Paradigm, everybody.
Yeah.
So a few people came to that August recording that we did. And then when we had this second concert, Finkel was one of the people from William Morris that came. And I was I'll never forget this. I was standing behind him, and I could see him sort of like bopping and mouthing one of the songs. And I was like, that's our guy. Because he already knows the song.
got him.
We got him. And so like, a couple weeks later, I emailed him. I was like, hey, how would you feel about us working with you? And he was like, let's do it. And that was sort of the beginning. So I don't believe in waiting for the proper time. Sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to be like, this is the work. I believe in the work. I'm going to email you. Like, the worst thing that could happen is that they don't respond or they don't show up. But emailing someone, you never know. They'll send an assistant or something. And then next thing you know, you're working with someone incredible.
Wow. Okay, so the book musical. It's a book musical you've been developing now for 5 years. Where did you? Okay, so how did you find this story, or how did you decide on it? Was there multiple stories you're deciding on, or
Ethan pitched it.
Okay.
Ethan pitched it to me because he was like, "Do you know about the 5 Points? Have you heard of Gangs of New York?" And I was like, "No." And it's about Lower Manhattan, 1860s. There was a Civil War draft where Irish immigrants could be drafted, but African Americans who were recently emancipated could not be. So there was a lot of tension in that area for what it was to be an American, right? And it's also said that the Irish jig and the African step dance were the beginning of American tap dance. So it's just like a melting pot of American culture and tension and the art that came out of it, right? And so it just felt like it sang. And so we started experimenting with, Irish Celtic sounds and gospel-y blues sounds from the black side, and how you mesh those together and create a score, which was our exercise when we started. And we presented a couple of those songs at that 54 Below concert, but we didn't have the story completely fleshed out yet. But that was the butt of the idea. And then we've been working with Harrison and the wonderful folks at Theater Latte Da developed it all through 2017. We had 2 workshops there. We were at Goodspeed New Musicals last winter for their new musical festival. And then the world premiere was at Theater Latte Da, and it extended and sold out, which was very exciting.
Of course it did.
Well, not of course, but some was in the water. So it happened.
Okay.
We're very glad that it happened.
That's incredible. So you do music and lyrics.
I do music and lyrics.
That's what the website says. But
Well,
tell me what you really do.
I do music and lyrics.
More, I imagine.
Yeah, well, no, I'm more of a melody. I'm not a musician in that I don't play an instrument.
Yeah.
So my instrument is my ear and my vocal cords.
Okay.
So I'll write a melody. Usually Ethan and I will jam out. He'll come up with a lick and I'll sort of sing over it. And the fun part in the way we write, I don't write lyrics first because it always have to feel like it's a groove. It's coming from a groove. So we just had a session a couple days ago, and I came in with a melody that had come to me. He came up with some chords and sort of A section. We then attached it. We created a B section and attached it to the chorus. And then I went away and wrote the lyrics. It's a new P.T. Barnum Act 2 song that we're going to have in 5 Points.
Awesome.
And then, we sort of figure out if we like it, we send it to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And then we go from there. So we have a different way of sort of writing music, but it comes really from the groove in the ear. So the melody is the most important part to me.
Okay.
When writing a song.
Yeah. Are you guys doing sessions weekly? Is that like where most of the work happens, is your sessions? Or is a lot of it like, can a session be literally over the phone? Like singing something, playing something?
It's interesting. So I left the Mormon tour 6 months before he did. So we were long distance for a bit.
Okay.
But I mean, it ranges. We can get in the room. We have a language. The beautiful thing about working with someone for so long is you have a language. We have what we call like our lines that patch our chord. When we know we're going to it, we have a groove about us. And so the fun part is like, great. So this new song is when one of the characters was given an opportunity to sign a contract. He leaves P.T. Barnum hanging, but then realizes very quickly thereafter that he needs to come back. So now P.T. Barnum has the power in his hand, and he gets a song of like, oh, you showed up. So what does that sound like, and what does that feel like? And that was a scenario we knew we were writing. And so we spent an afternoon playing around with some stuff and found a tune, and now we get to work on it. And that's the fun part. It's like knowing the assignment and then creating the feel around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, and then I was also seeing like, now you were commissioned at Seattle in the Fifth Avenue.
The Fifth Avenue. Yeah, we had sent them 5 points a couple years ago and heard nothing back, and then got a random call from our agent who said, hey, they have this new project, 64, and they're looking for teams. Can you write a couple of tunes? So we did in like a week and a half and recorded them with some of our Broadway friends and submitted, and we got the gig. So we spent most of 2017, part of 2018, developing the show, which is a 1960s score about racial segregation in a fraternity when it wasn't so cool to do so.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so then how many projects, level with me here, how many projects are you working on at this very moment?
With Ethan, we have three babies. We have 64, which is going to be changing a bit, which we're still excited. 5 points. Yes. And then Bo, which is a brand new one, which is going to be out at the Adirondack Theater Festival this summer. Great. Those are our three major ones. And then Polka Dots, which Ethan orchestrated, is a TYA show that was at the Atlantic Theater Company and is sort of taken off beyond our wildest dreams. Pete Herpan, which Cleveland Musical Theater is doing. And then I have a play Chicken and Biscuits that is getting a reading at the Billie Holiday Theater next weekend. I have a short film, Click Click, and then a children's book called Broccoli Head. So I have like 8 projects on the table, in the air,
somehow I
somebody
throw the
come
one
and
back
write
up.
a check. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So so then how are you balancing all of this in your life? Are you scheduling? I mean, naturally you have to schedule like rehearsals and whatnot. Yeah. But is there like a work-life balance, or do you schedule, my writing time?
The beautiful thing about Beautiful is that my track specifically has an awesome solo moment. We call it the 12 Minutes a Slave, which is between Up on the Roof and the end of Love and Feeling. And then I have like a 40-minute break in the play. So I'm not downstairs like, hanging out, laughing. I'm usually working, and the dressing room knows that, and the guys are awesome that way. But I do a lot of writing on site. So the book writer of Polka Dots and Peter Pan is Melvin Tunstall III, who's fabulous. And we met at Beautiful because he's a swing. Great. So we actually wrote these projects on site, like backstage at Beautiful. Yeah.
It's so efficient.
So, yeah. Well, it's like, but the moment I got hip to how the business works and how creative people are able to create things and then move on and create more things, unlike actors who pretty much, are contracted to stay between 6 months and a year, I was like, wait a minute. If I have any musical talent here and it shows some promise, I should explore it because I have, again, nothing to lose. Yeah. And the moment I sort of figured out, how, and I do a lot of studying. I try to see everything, how people conquered something, how people sort of failed, and you learn from those mistakes and you create your work from that. So
are there any that stood out or stand out in your mind of anyone in particular? Like, does any particular moment in time stand out for you for someone that was like a failure? Yeah. Or like a failure that inspired you or success that inspired you? I know there's a lot, and that would be a separate conversation, but failures. Doesn't have to be yours even, but something else that you've witnessed and they remain nameless.
I think being on stage and looking into a Broadway audience and seeing who's there every night is I just had this conversation with some producers the other day. It's very important for you to know who you're writing for. And if you're writing towards a Broadway bow, the target audience is between like late 40s through like mid 60s white people, hands down. And you don't have to write a show for them, but you have to write a show that they will too enjoy, or you're wasting your time because those are your consumers. It's business.
Yeah, it is.
And that's what I've learned is like, how do I take whatever story I'm trying to tell and make it universal in a way that, even though in the case of Chicken and Biscuits, which is a Black family comedy at a funeral, that 3 Jewish women in Queens came up to me afterwards and were like, we want part 2. Like, what's next? Because they felt like they were a part of the cookout, So how do you create work that is universal? Come From Away is a perfect example of that, where it's no one's specific story, but it includes all of us because it's humane.
Yeah. Is that by adding other characters, or is that the way the characters speak? Like, how do you make it universal?
It is taking universal situations like death, life, weddings, friendship, love, loss, and presenting them in a way that an audience member goes, oh, that's my cousin, or that's my mother, or I live that, and not like, oh, well, that's a black guy going through such and such. But that's a human going through such and such.
Right.
So how do you write things that make people like let down their walls and open up and experience the story as a story without a filter? Like that's the exercise, especially being a black artist.
Yeah.
And wanting to stay true to my black experience, but in the theater in a commercial way. Like, how do you do that dance? And everybody doesn't want to do that, and you don't have to.
Yeah.
But if you want to, and you get to Broadway and you get mad that people don't receive it, you didn't do your research to really figure out what your audience was. That's
Who the ticket buyers are.
yeah. It's like
The majority.
Have your voice, but also know who your ticket buyers are, and maybe take your voice somewhere else. You know, with Chicken and Biscuits, we're trying to figure out where to do it possibly regionally in the markets that will appreciate it. Polka Dot started at the Iverington Playhouse in Connecticut. It then had regional productions in Kentucky and around the country before it got the attention of the Atlantic in New York. And then we won the Off-Broadway Alliance Award. And now it's like national tour and region, and went back out. It didn't start in New York. You know, it didn't start Off-Broadway first. So it's knowing how to market your show as part of the business part, I think.
Well, it seems as though you know it pretty well, because it's been like this sounded like 2013 is like kind of when all of this writing and creating began.
2013 was when it started. Yeah.
So I mean, to me that's so much in 6 years.
Yeah.
5 years, 6 years.
Yeah. But I also I feel like I'm playing catch up, and I know how hard it is to get produced. So I treat it very seriously.
Yeah.
You know, I like writing. I don't like writing for something to sit on a shelf.
Hello.
So I'm like writing towards the idea that we can sell this thing, change some lives, you know, hopefully inspire some children if it's a TYA piece, and make a check. It's a business.
It is a business. Mm-hmm. It is, and it's a great business when you're on the creation side.
It's a fantastic business.
I mean, any side, but really the creation side is like, that's the good.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you also have the joy of creating jobs.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know how many writers think about that, but it's like,
I mean,
I always wonder if like Lynn is, you know, ever like stands there and is like, you know, wow. Jobs.
I think Lynn knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, I had this hashtag very early on, Jobs for All, which is like, you know, my standard for writing is for women, people of color, like the people that don't get seen in the American stage as much. Like those are the underdogs. I like to write for those people. And I have a lot of friends that are really talented but can't get into a Broadway room or not booking Broadway shows, but they too deserve roles.
Yeah.
And my like Jonathan Larson thought, especially with Bo, is to take this project, to take really, you know, talented B-list, quote unquote, folks that you don't know, make them a part of this awesome show that takes off and they become stars because of it. Like that to me is so thrilling. Like I don't need a Tony Award winner in my play. Hopefully we can find someone who's as amazing and make them a star. Like that's the other fun part of writing that I feel like you can't do as much when you're an actor because you're worried about what you got to do. But as a writer, there's like so many levels and possibilities that are not just serving you.
Right.
You know?
I know the best, especially with writing, the best research is to just like do it. You know, to learn about writing is to just do it. Just start doing it. Did you do any, like, because I know like writing a film is different than writing a musical than it is. I mean, they're all stories, but there's little structural differences, I guess, that one might have to pay attention to into where put a climax or what, you know, is there an intermission? All those like little things you don't deal with a film. I'm curious, like what research have you done or what have you learned or
I watch a lot of
stand in mind?
documentaries.
Okay. Which did any stand out in your mind?
Oh, I just watched the Maya Angelou and Still I Rise on Netflix. Watch it. Oh my goodness. I mean, her story, like every good, like memorable artist, I feel like has been through something tragic or traumatic that has sort of birthed art out of them. James Baldwin, Oprah. I watch a lot of the Hollywood Reporter tapes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. They're all over YouTube and they're free and they're incredible. You'll learn so much about the process because every Academy Award season, they'll take, you know, the nominees and put them at a table. And so you have, best, screenwriter, you have a table of all these screenwriters for TV and film sitting talking about their process. It's a free masterclass in how people stuck to their guns, how people passed on things, how actors like sometimes have issues with dropping character, who's method, who's not. I mean, there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time studying that. And then for musicals, it's, there's the I Want song, if you will, but Melvin and I were talking the other day. It's like you have to know the form to break it. So in the case of Company with Sondheim, he placed his I Want song being alive at the end of the show. So structurally, it's still a musical, but it's not done in the traditional, third, The Wizard and I moment.
Yes.
So how do you study the form and then break it? But you really got to know it because people are used to experiencing a show a certain way. Now, some people are breaking that form completely and not honoring it and creating their, new form, which is great. For someone that studied musical theater, Hart School, 2009, I learned a lot about form, and I try to play with it, know. And so I just study. I see everything.
Yeah.
And the audience teaches you so much.
Yeah. You mean their reactions?
Their reactions when they're engaged, when they're sleeping, when they're slouching, when they're moving, when they laugh. I'm working with Michael Wilson, who directed A Trip to Bountiful on Broadway on Beau, and Josh Rhodes, who did Bright Star. And, when we were going through the script, he's like, great, so this is a good line, but like, are you writing this just for a laugh? Because the integrity of the character you've written probably would not want to laugh there. And I was like, oh God, like I like the laugh though, but are you respecting your character that you wrote? Yeah. So it's knowing, it's listening. It's not knowing it all and listening. And I've done a lot of listening. I don't know things because I'm prolific. I know things because I've studied the greats.
Yeah.
Jonathan Larson, like Rent is a masterclass in setting up characters that you'll lose. So in 64, there's a character that when we first wrote the first draft that we like sort of set up and then we lose him in Act 2. And it's literally the I'll cover you reprise like setup. It's exactly that. And when we had our reading, it landed. And people were wiping tears because they had connected with that character, and then you set them up and you take them away.
It's just fun. It's fun to hear you say this because like even just talking about the podcast format that I've completely ripped it from someone that I pay great attention to and listen to their podcast regularly. If you go listen to their podcast, Tim Ferriss Show, you would have no idea. Now that I said that, you'd probably have an idea.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't, you know what I mean? It's like, it's essentially the same thing, but completely different.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
That works. This works.
Yeah.
It's just, I love that with the I'll Cover You.
Yeah. You just got to know it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to steal it. Now you got to write a good song. It can't be I'll Cover You, but the
doesn't have to be original.
Yeah, but the moment works.
Yeah.
So you take the moments that work and you go, oh, yeah, that's the I'll Cover You moment.
Great.
Yep.
When did this begin for you, theater in general?
I was about 16, New Haven, Connecticut, where I was born, and the Cats tour and Rent tour came through the Schubert Theater. Yeah. The Rent tour that I would join 3 years later as a swing. And I was like, wait a minute. I sung in church all my life and been dancing and done sports and stuff as well, but I didn't have the language or the training for theater, but I was taken away with the lights and the makeup and all that stuff. And I was, again, studying it very early on, and I sort of fell in love with it when I realized there was a musical theater sort of compilation of all the things that I had liked. Auditioned for 4 programs. I only got into Hart. And I was thrown headfirst into this program with all these theater kids because I did one show in high school, but I didn't, I never had a voice lesson, didn't know sight reading, and never had an acting class. So I was very much out of my comfort zone. But I'm so glad I went there.
Yeah.
And I learned so much.
Was that like what do I want to do for a living? Well, try theater.
No, I knew I liked singing. I knew I liked dancing. It looked fun. And I had gotten and I had gotten into a school. There was a bit of confirmation there of like, hey, well, maybe this is the thing. And I'll never forget, we were at a table just like this, and my father sat down all my acceptance letters. He's like, okay, Doug, so like, what do you want to do? And I was like, that. And he's like, okay, Doug, so like, really, what do you want to do? And
What
I was
else were
like,
you accepted? Were you accepted
that.
for like other
So the backup
focuses
plan
or-
was secondary education mathematics, because I had quick with numbers.
Come on. My mom's a
And-
math teacher. It's good stuff.
Yeah. And then maybe dance, because
Okay.
I had been dancing. But I got into like Fordham, but they wanted me to like come and audition. I had no true ballet technique, but I could dance because I've been, and I could tap and stuff. So I got into like Hofstra. I got into a few different things, but only Hart for theater. And he was like, okay, well, here we go. And the first show they saw me in was Sweeney Todd, which imagine that being the first musical your parents come to. And my father was like, what are we paying our money for? What is this? There is blood everywhere. What? You could have done this in the garage.
We could get you a barber chair.
Yeah, like, what is this?
Oh, that's funny. Are your
Yeah.
parents in entertainment?
They're
Or
not.
Anyone in your family?
They're
Or are you
not.
like the...
My mother's side sings a lot. The vocals, the butter, as we call it, the sugar butter flowers on the chords on my mother's side. But like, and my father claims to say, he's like, well, I sang back in the day. I'm like, okay, well, where? Because I never heard it. So singing is in the family,
Okay.
but no one's an artist that's actually pursued it, I would say.
Did you... Well, there's two separate questions. One, did you have... Did you or do you have a mentor? Someone that you go in and check in with, or someone that's...
That's a really solid question. I don't...
It's just...
Some of my friends are my mentors.
Okay, yeah.
Some of my friends have become my mentors. People that I just trust. I mean, like Melvin, working with Melvin is, you realize you want to write musical theater. You look around at, you cannot name me. If we did a like speed lightning round, 5 African-American composers that have been on Broadway in the past decade. You couldn't do it. And that's heartbreaking. So there's a void there. And meeting Melvin, and he has this musical Bloom that I saw fall of 2014. I was like, oh, this is really great. And he ended up writing the book for Polka Dots because I saw Bloom. But having sort of a posse and a family of folks that you can go to and go, can you read this? Can you let me know? Like, we have this sort of group between Greg Borofsky, who wrote Polka Dots Music with me, and Ethan and Melvin and Ted, our music director, were like, their opinions matter a lot to me. So, when Melvin came and saw Chicken and Biscuits, I'm like, give me notes. Like, what? Give me notes. He's like, I have no notes. You want, a group. And I found that, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, as I've asked that question before and now, it becomes so much more evident that like when you have a mentor, no one ever calls themselves your mentor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't name that.
Yeah.
It's like you've been working with someone who works in the business. You're like, well, I guess they are mentoring me.
Yeah.
Because I've had that thought. Because then I was like thinking about myself. I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess so. Because you don't name it. But believing in yourself. This is really interesting for me. I really have some curious questions about this. Believing in yourself when other people aren't believing in you, or believing in yourself when you're not getting, the recognition, the praise of the friends and stuff. Because you get a lot of like quote unquote likes or whatever once you put up a post that this is going to happen. But there's a lot of time of like, thinking, self-doubt, calculating, figuring out. I'm curious what thoughts, if any, you have on it, how you navigate it, if anything comes to mind.
I had an epiphany like 3 or 4 years ago where like the Beyoncés of the world were Clayton's and Douglas's at some point, right?
Yeah.
They were not always Beyonce. She did not come out of the womb in a glitter boot and a microphone, right? She had to earn her way, and she worked very hard.
Yeah.
And so we're all working that hard. And it's happening, like some original cast members of Beautiful are now on reoccurring television shows, right? It is possible, and you have to just believe that. You have to hold on to that small glimmer of hope. You cannot let one person's opinion, because this business is heavily opinionated. That's what we forget. In college, you think like, oh, this teacher said that I sucked, so I really must suck. It's like, no, because you might go to a different school where someone believes that you're brilliant. I mean, auditioning is all subjective, and sitting behind the table, you also realize, oh, wait a minute, it has nothing to do with the work of the actor. Sometimes a director has worked with that actor before. The casting director can vouch for X, Y, and Z. The musical director has a relationship. there's funding, and there's only so many contracts, and we have to go non-union with this. There's so many factors that have nothing to do with just you. Yeah. And it takes you a long time to catch up with that. So holding on to the belief that your time will come, but not also being an idiot. If it's been 5 years and you haven't booked anything, you might want to look at what's not working.
Yeah.
But you can't take every rejection to heart.
Yeah.
A couple of days ago, so funny, I had a meeting with two producers from Be More Chill, got on the train, went home to Ethan to write, and then got home to my apartment and opened the mailbox to a rejection letter. Like in that order. And I was like, yes, universe, remind me where I'm at, because I'm always humble. You know, like you, it's just the business. And the sooner you get used to that, the sooner you can keep pumping. But you're not everybody's tea. That's the other thing. I realized, like, oh, X, Y, and Z is, I don't know that I don't believe they're that fierce, but I get why so-and-so loves them. Cool. Do your thing, live your life, and somebody will believe in you. You know, everybody may not, but you will find that one person. And sometimes it has to start with you believing in yourself. So I hope I answered it.
Yeah, well said.
A lot.
No, that's well said. That's well said. I know. It's like, it's amazing how much we're capturing just so quickly in this, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh my God. I was thinking about it so hard I completely forgot the next question. Oh yeah. Common, and you might have already answered this in some form or another, common pieces of incorrect advice you hear in your field, either as a performer, as a creator.
Oof. So I teach a musical theater confidence class. I think type is sometimes misguided. I think we're in an age where type is sort of changing. It's just so funny. I ran into Bonnie Milligan on the way here, and she redefined what it is to be a Broadway princess and head over heels completely, right?
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous to walk in a room trying to be what you think they're looking for. You have to bring your personality. When I teach, I'm like, I don't care what notes you're hitting. If you're not funny or memorable, someone's going to come in, hit the notes you hit, and be memorable because they were hilarious. So bring what you bring your essence, your kindness, your grace into the room with you, not just your book and your heels and your notes. That's a misconception, because I've cast people based on like, that's he's going to be funny. He's going to be funny to work with. He may not have the best voice, but his personality is going to bring the piece to life. So not being so cookie cutter and wearing the pastel colors and, you know, the hair being perfect. This is a true story, in the Polka Dots final callbacks, and this girl came in who was primped. Everything was perfect. She left. I really liked her. And we had a discussion, and somebody on the team was like, I don't like her. She was too perfect. And I said, okay, but that's probably how she was trained. That's not necessarily who she is. So let's give her a shot to adjust. Like, actors take notes. So actually, let's direct them. So we brought her back in.
Let's let her act.
Let's let her act. We brought her back in. I was like, can you take off your heels? Let out your hair a little bit. She like sat on the floor. She booked the job. She booked the job. But that's because we had a perception of who she was, but we didn't give her a chance to breathe. So sometimes walking imperfect is not actually
what they want.
Yeah. We actually want you to know that we can make you perfect in the character, but you don't have to come perfect in the audition. And that's my way. It's like,
I'm so curious. Have you learned a lot about yourself, your process, your auditions, your performing from watching now behind the table people perform words you've written or things you've worked on?
In all honesty, I've learned that I'm not as prepared as I should be.
Oh, for realsies.
Yeah. Well, some people come in and I'm like, they learn the whole song. They know all the sides off book. And that is not how I walk into audition rooms, which is not the best way to do it all the time. But it's true. But no, I've learned to give people the love to help them feel comfortable to do their best work. Sometimes you walk into these rooms and people are cold, and people fail merely because they're not feeling any love. And like, we've had like candy in our auditions, and we make people laugh. We're like, hey y'all, how you doing? We want people to do their best, you know?
Yes.
And I think that's setting up an environment of love in the room. And you'll be surprised at what you get from people when you give them that.
When their guard's down.
Yeah, when they're like, oh, wait. And we're like, oh, you didn't hit the note. Pause. Cool. Take a moment. Figure it out. Not like, ugh. You know,
Thanks.
No. And that's the thing I sort of pride myself on is like creating rooms of love.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to give back as a writer that I don't always get as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
It is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What's most important to you in life?
Humanity. I love our business. It's great.
Yeah.
But like, I don't care how many Tonys you have if you're not kind. I don't care. I really don't. And I'd rather be known as a person who's kind and does good work than someone who's popular and is a douchebag. Hands down.
On that vein, the numerous shows you've worked on, are there any common themes of like the top performers that you've just run around backstage with? Actions, behaviors, etc., interactions.
I think people are goofier than sometimes you see them in character, right? Like they have goofier personalities than what you'll see in the show. Yeah. No, I mean, I it's really like the camaraderie with like Beautiful from the beginning. In San Francisco, we were bowing and then like at the bar, like everybody together and not getting wasted, but just enjoying each other. And I think that's the part of theater that we sometimes forget is that it can become so competitive that you forget it's a community. Yeah. And like, you're not just working with these people. You have an opportunity to like make new friends and really gain connections. So Bo, which is going to Adirondack this summer, the title of the title character, is Jeb Brown, who was the original Donnie Kirshner in Beautiful. So he's like 5 years later playing a role that I wrote basically backstage at Beautiful. And that's a whole nother connection.
That's funny.
Like a full circle thing, which is totally like, that's what theater's about. You know, Alice Ripley, we did The Waves last summer at New York Stage and Film. She just did Captain Hook and the Peter Pan reading. It's community. And that's the one thing I value more than anything.
Is there, and I love this, I didn't know this about the class you teach, about audition.
Oh, yeah.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Is there, I guess along the lines of audition or even the business in general, is there advice that you would give to like a smart, driven, new entry of a performer into this theater world?
It's not about booking Broadway. It's about making connections.
Simply put.
Because
and truth.
Half the people who are in that Broadway show has probably made that connection 10 years ago with that director or choreographer, and they're on the list. So what you want to do is you want to get in the rooms with, you know, the new generation of writers. You want to be in every reading that's coming up. You don't necessarily, I mean, a Broadway show is awesome, but the people that half the cast of these shows have probably worked with half of these director choreographers before. Yeah. And so you want to be a part of the next generation of that. Not just at the EPA trying to get in, because by 75% of the show is probably cast. I mean, I had a friend book Mormon Original Company from an ECC.
I hear these stories.
It's
always a friend of a friend. It's
true.
Suspicious, but
it's
no.
true. He did.
It happens.
Tyson Jeanette. But you know, it's knowing
there is the off chance that you can get that.
Yeah,
but that's definitely more of an off chance than just making more friends connections.
Yeah, and don't shoot yourself in the foot. Oh, this is the most important thing in the business. Be nice to everyone. I'm not talking everyone in the cast. I'm talking director, choreographer, stage management, automation, costume, hair. You'd be surprised. People talk. And there are really talented people on Broadway that have horrible reputations as human beings.
Yikes.
Yes. And they don't know that. And it keeps them from getting work. And I, as a writer, I'm like, I'm not, I'll ask people. So this true story, I was in my final callback for Book of Mormon. It was down to me and two other guys. They had 7 Broadway shows total between the two of them. I had 0. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get this job because look at the optics. Like, I'm not going to get it. Yeah. I got out of the final callback and I had a voicemail from Sam Davis, who was my musical director on the Dreamgirls tour. And he said, I got a call from Book of Mormon just now asking about you, and I gave you a glowing review. Now, if I had been a douchebag on that tour to him, I probably wouldn't have got the job. I ended up booking the job. But you have to be kind to everyone because, you know, the wig assistant on this show might be your, you know, supervisor on the next one.
It's so true, though.
Yeah. And people take that for granted. It's like, oh, I'm the actor, like... No, it's actually a community of people. and people talk. Yeah,
it's refreshing to hear it said again, because it's like you can you can see it. You can see, I mean, even you're doing this little regional summer gig thing, the dirt floor, the thing, and people are acting silly because they think they're a couple miles from the city, and it's like, we're all going back to the city after the job.
Yeah, and people talk, and people
and
will call
Facebook,
theater,
and it's like so easy to find information.
Yeah.
Okay, this is another question. When you're hiring new people, and I'm just curious if this is even a thing for you. Do you use, well, I would assume you use Facebook, like mutual friends, finding out who knows who, connecting it, figuring who you can ask about whom. That's like,
I have cast someone from Instagram. I found the videos on Instagram, and they got a direct offer for a project. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I just love repeating. I mean, yes.
And you have to be aware of so that's my other thing. I don't think I'm prolific or anything. I think I use social media to my advantage because it's business.
Yeah.
So what you put out there, people are following. And we have this discussion in the dressing room all the time about how people are getting jobs based on their followers and stuff, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I think you have to be conscious of your social media presence. Mm-hmm. You can use it if you want to use it as like true friendship. That's cool, but just know that I am Facebook friends with casting directors from Tara Rubin and Telsey and Michael Cassara and Jamie Bett, all those people. Yeah. Like they're following, Yeah. So it's just a different world than it used to be, and kindness is the best. It's just gonna get you through.
It is. It really is. As we wrap up here, is there a word or a phrase that comes to mind that you would put up on a billboard for millions of people to see? Does anything come to mind?
Humanity. Humanity. Always. Humanity. I don't care. I could never be an actor again, but I'd rather be known that I was a kind, human. Humanity will save us all.
It will.
Leave your ego stage left and be kind. Really. Theater's already stressful.
Leave it in the wing.
Yeah. Leave it in the wing. Put on your wig. Come on. And just be nice.
Be nice.
Yeah. Be nice.
Where can we find you on social medias?
I am Chocolate Hipster on the Instagram. I'm Douglas Sings on the Twitter. Okay. I am Douglas Lyons on the Facebook. And then the Polka Dots album is on Spotify, as is #LoveLive, which is the Ethan and my album. And then I feel like that's it for now.
Okay. This is good. Is there any other asks or anything else you want to put out there to people listening? Does anything else?
I don't know. I think we're in a very interesting part of musical theater where there are some people who've been around for a while making their way to Broadway. I think the biggest thing that I ask, and I think sometimes gets me down, is I don't think people understand how hard it is to get producers and investors and things on projects very early on. It's easier once you've had your first baby, but getting there is really, really hard. So if you have a friend who is trying to start a podcast or writing a show or even if you can't go to the event, sharing helps because publicity gets things out there. Like the producer I met with a couple of days ago found me on Facebook. She's like, I just heard your name and I heard you're writing shows and I want to meet with you. That was via social media, so supporting your friend now could mean something 5 years from now. Yeah. And I don't know, the more that we do that, the more this generation, I think, really will sort of bubble, because remember, there's that gap of consumers in the audience and their age and all that. But if we're supporting our own and going, oh, this composer, my friend, blah, 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 and enough people start doing that, the powers that be will pay attention. I really believe that.
Yeah. It gets to a point where you can't be ignored. You're just so present.
Well, and if the work is good, then
it's got to be good.
Yes. Yeah. And then it takes off in a way that, because what I'm also learning is that you get to a point where everything is no longer in your control. So right now I'm about to lose some of it, but I've had some control where I'm I can cast my friends who are amazing. But when you start, the higher the profile of the project and producers, it's not only just you. So supporting those people early on, I've been able, when we had a switchover on one of the projects, I was able to say, I really love this group of people. I want us to do this project at this stage with them. And then there's an opportunity there. But part of that is showing up, doing table reads for little to no pay, and doing things to be a part of the room so that if things flourish, you're a part of it. Like don't scoff at your friend's reading or song or whatever, because you just never know what that person's going to be. I'm telling you right now, you never know.
You literally never know.
You never know.
Douglas, this has been a pleasure and a joy.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. The fastest 40 minutes of my life. I love it.
I talk a lot, and I usually wrap up the next question because I just over talk. So.
No, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for taking this time to chat with me.
Absolutely.
It's been fun. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Douglas Lyons.
Boom.
You've been listening to Entertainment X, the podcast. You can follow Entertainment X on Instagram at _EntertainmentX_. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join Clay next week for another curiosity conversation on Entertainment X. Thank you for listening.